This right here is Guam. Yes, a territory of the United States out here in the Pacific, very close to Southeast Asia. Are you thinking about visiting Guam soon? Are you wondering, is Guam really worth visiting in the next year? Well, this video is for you, as I'm going to cover what it's like to be here, what it's like to live here, what it's like to visit here right now, how things are, if it's even worth it. Is it worth your money? So to make a long story short, I would say Guam is worth visiting and it is not worth visiting in the upcoming year. As you guys can see right now, this is Tumon Bay. It's 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. As you can see, it's quiet. Just listen. As you can tell, there's not a whole lot of noise. It's very peaceful. It's very beautiful. There's a bit of clouds out today. We have some shade, but there is intense sun. It's gonna be a pretty good day here in Guam. Man, I never can get over how beautiful the beach is here in Tumon. Just the quality of the water, the color of it, and you know how it's never really that busy here, especially early mornings. You know, on the weekend it does get busier like today. In the afternoon, towards the evening, it's gonna get more busy, but right now, I mean, just look, you have all this space. There's so much room. Where the hotels are is where everyone congregates, and then you have this kind of like open jungle area that's empty, so you can come here and you got all this to yourself. Usually, you know, throughout the day there's gonna be more people arriving in this spot, but it's just so nice how this beach, you have so much space. But anyways, enough blabbering. What I want to talk about is a few key points today about, is Guam worth visiting in the next year? And these key points are going to be based on, you know, the beginning of next year, so the first half of the year, the current situation with tourism, and whether or not it's really going to be a good year or a difficult year, and how it's starting to look at the end of the year now. But can we just take a second and look at the water here? Look at all these small little fish. I don't know what kind of fish they are, but they're always just cruising along the shore. I'm not sure why people don't catch them. Maybe they're not edible, maybe they're not a good bait, but seems like they would be. There's so many of them, hundreds. So going into the next year, it might be a difficult year for Guam, and I say that because of a couple things. So right now, you know, tourism has been difficult. If we look down the beach here, there's not a whole lot of people. There are some people, but there should be a lot more if we compare that to what it used to be before the pandemic, before the typhoon, and times like that I've already mentioned in previous videos. Right now, the tourism industry here is just at a low. Something like 45%, as I was saying before, and it should be higher, should be, you know, 75% at least by now, but unfortunately, just things aren't working out right. There's a few reasons why tourism isn't at what it used to be. One being airlines. So here in Guam, if you're not familiar, we have very specific airlines that fly in and out of the island, mostly US based, Korean, Philippines, and Japanese. And so with those airlines, one of them, which was a low-cost airline, Jeju airline, that flew out of Korea to Guam, they pulled out. And so now there is less low-cost airplanes coming from Korea, which means the tourism from Korea is also probably going to drop a little bit. And on top of that, the other airlines that we have coming from Japan, there is not that many. And as far as I'm aware of, there's only one airline coming out of Japan called Japan Airlines. And a reason why there isn't so many Japanese tourists coming here is because of the yen. Their currency is a lot weaker, as you may have heard. So this being a US destination where the cost is very high, the US dollar is a bit stronger, it's making it more difficult for these people to enjoy a vacation here in Guam. And if they want to, they have to spend a little extra money than they originally thought. So that is a reason why tourism is down. One being the airlines, and two being the conversion rates of local currency from different countries. And also, as I said, yes, there's Philippine Airlines, but you know, the cost of living here is nothing comparable to Korea in here or Japan in here. But the cost of traveling here from the Philippines for somebody with a Philippine salary is going to be way different than coming from Korea or Japan. So that is another reason why, you know, tourism is low here, because there's not going to be many Filipinos coming here, even though there is Philippine airline. Most of that actually is the local Filipino people living here that are maybe born here or just living here for work, traveling back to the Philippines to visit their family and stuff like that, or even people just wanting to go to the Philippines for a cheaper vacation and spend less money than they do here. But one of the good things with tourism being low, even though it's not good for the economy, as the economy definitely depends on tourism a lot, is that, look, it's less crowded. You have more of Guam to yourself. And sometimes it's good like that. When you travel to a certain destination, you want to experience it in a more quiet and authentic feeling. And that's how you have it here right now in Guam. You will see tourism, of course. Even going into next year, you're going to see tourism, but it's not going to be at a huge mass amount that you might be used to when traveling to other countries. Now, don't be fooled. Just because it looks beautiful, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's hot out right now, 85 degrees. I'm already boiling. I've only been out here for about 15 minutes, so hopping in the shade and taking in the views from here and trying to cool off while making this video. But another key point to talk about is how businesses are closing here in Guam. There's a lot of businesses that are shutting down because they're struggling, which is going to make it a difficult upcoming year, especially these places like DFS. If you haven't heard, I just made a video about it. The Tea Galleria, also known as DFS. So as you will see, everything is still here. They have a full stock, but they are trying to get rid of everything, and the prices have dropped. They haven't dropped so much, but they definitely have dropped. Here in the DFS, there are so many stores, so it's going to take them a very long time to sell all of their items, if they can even sell everything. As you can see, it is one of the luxury shopping malls in all of Guam. So once all this is gone and it is empty, it's going to be very weird to see. But DFS is closing down in March of 2026, and a lot of tourists do come here and they shop at DFS, as it is a duty-free shopping center, and there's a lot of luxury brands that they want to come to the States and experience and buy because maybe they don't have it in their country. So that's closing down, and then that might not be here, and they're going to have to move product around, and maybe there will be some stores. But in this year currently, a lot of businesses have been struggling. More have been closing down, especially the smaller businesses. Some bigger businesses like Hard Rock Cafe, they closed down, but the smaller businesses, the local businesses, they're the ones that are struggling and being impacted the most. So unfortunately, with the economy being the way that it is, and with tourism not being at its highest or near back to where it used to be, these businesses can't get to the sales that they once were always used to. Even though tourism is low and not doing so good, you might be thinking, well, it's a perfect time to visit. That means the hotels are going to be more quiet and things like that, probably get better prices. But the truth is, probably going into next year, even with tourism being lower, these hotels don't seem to drop their prices too much. So you're still going to pay a lot for a hotel room. I think the average cost for a hotel room here in Guam is at least $200 a night, with many of them being more. And then if you want the cheaper ones, you're really going to look at getting a place that isn't so great and maybe not even located on the beach. So that is a problem. Another issue is that for tourists that come here, they always find that getting around the island can be difficult, as there is no transportation system, that they end up having to pay high fees for taxis and stuff like that. For instance, if you're coming from the airport, you can expect to pay $30 for a taxi just to get down to the hotels in the tourist area, which is less than a 10-minute ride. So, many people don't like that situation. I think even the locals and everyone else would agree that it's not right how it's that expensive, but as we know in the States, transportation services like taxis and Ubers are just really high. But if you are coming to Guam, you're probably going to want to rent a car, as that's really the best way to explore the island, especially if you don't hire a private tour or a guide or something. And you can get a car rental to go around the island, but you have to think, if you're going to be visiting the island and you really want to make your visit worth it, you're going to need to save that money and spend on a car rental. So car rental is probably going to cost you $100 or something, or I'm not too sure on the price of car rentals here in Guam, but I would expect if you're going to rent a car and use it for a few days, you're probably going to be spending around $100 a day or something, with the price of the car rental, gas, maybe insurance and things like that. So it's not very cheap. So if you are coming to Guam, you have to keep that in mind and think, is this going to be worth my visit to spend all this money? and maybe not even get to experience things to the fullest. Another thing I want to touch on for people that are going to be visiting Guam in the new year coming. So the beginning of every year in Guam is dry season. So in dry season, that's when you have the best weather. I mean best weather as in it doesn't rain so much, so you feel like when you're trying to do activities, they're not getting ruined by the rain, as the weather here can be very temperamental and it can rain 1 minute and stop and then, you know, on and off. So in the dry season, that's when you have the best weather. Also, the water is at its best quality, the clearest, the, you know, most turquoise color that there is, because, you know, there's less sediment going into it, or runoff from the city and stuff, or the island I should say, because there's not really a city here. So dry season is something that's going to either make you want to come even more or maybe deter you away, because also it's very hot, it's very dry. The temperature here in Guam is always the same, pretty much around 85 degrees or so. And then you have to add, you know, the heat index, the actual feeling, the actual temperature feeling, and also humidity, because there is humidity even in the dry season. The one problem with the dry season is that sometimes more people are traveling here, so prices might be, I don't know, a little bit higher. So the problem is that it can be more congested and there's more demand for hotel rooms and certain things, so you just have to plan accordingly. So my goal was not to make this video too long, and I want to wrap up this video with a few things that can really help you make a decision on whether or not it is worth visiting Guam in the near future. So keep in mind, Guam is expensive. It's always going to be expensive. It's never going to be a cheap destination. It's in the Pacific. Pacific Islands are just very expensive. If you are coming to Guam for vacation, or even if you want to move to Guam, you just have to remember that living here requires spending a little bit more money than you may be used to. Even if you find ways to live on a budget here, you're still going to pay more money than you would living on a budget somewhere else, maybe in mainland US or in some other country. If you are somebody that is going to be coming from, say, Southeast Asia, it's a very, very convenient location to travel to without actually going to the US, to the mainland, or even further to Hawaii. It's so close to Asia. You have a less than 4-hour flight, I think, to Philippines, into Korea, and then Japan is like 4.5 hours or so. And then even if you want to go to Vietnam and to Thailand, it's a bit further than that when you have to transfer on another airlines. This is a convenient place for those to travel coming from Southeast Asia and wanting a little piece of the United States. And also those coming from the US and maybe wanting to travel to Asia, this is a good place for them to stop on the way sometimes, as if they're flying through Hawaii. They can stop here, connect. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it's a nice little destination to add to your trip if you're going to Asia. So I do think it's a destination that's definitely worth to visit, especially if you have the money to spend, even if you are coming from the US. Many people, I've never been to Hawaii, but many people say it's just like Hawaii, but it's different because it's more remote compared to, I mean, Hawaii is remote, right? But it's a massive island over there, massive island chain. Here in Guam, Guam is a tiny island. You're talking 9 miles wide, about 36 miles long, so it's not very big at all. One thing for sure is if you're not going to be visiting Guam, but you're thinking actually about moving to Guam, that's a whole different story because moving is a lot more expensive. If you want to know more about moving to Guam and the cost of living here, you can check out some of my other videos, as I've made a few of them, and I think they'll be very useful for you if you are trying to do some research on whether or not you should move out here to the Pacific. So one other thing I want to give you that might help you decide whether or not it's worth visiting here in Guam is a little bit of cost, right? So if you are coming to Guam for a visit, just keep in mind that a hotel on average is $200 a night. More or less depending on where you stay, right? A car, driving around the island, renting it, spending some money on gas, you're probably looking at, I want to say $100 up to $200 a day. And then lastly, food, right? If you want to do it on a budget and not spend that much money, you can probably get away with $60 a day per person of eating 2 to 3 meals a day, stuff like that, drinks. But food is probably going to be a lot more, as down here in the tourist area, just food is more expensive in general. So those are just some quick, simple costs that you can keep in mind when visiting Guam. If you are going to be visiting here, highly recommend do your research, see how much things cost, see how much you want to spend, what you want to do, and plan accordingly. But as you can tell from this video, as I said, it is and it isn't worth visiting. It depends on who you are, the money you want to spend. As you can see right now, there's still tourists here. They're still willing to spend some money, but it's definitely not very cheap. And actually, I don't know how long people come here to Guam and stay for, like what's the average vacation, but I have a feeling for a lot of the people from Southeast Asia, they're probably spending 3 days on average, because it's really pricey. Just think about it, $2 a night, $200 a night in a hotel. Imagine doing that for 7 days. That's $1,400 on hotel stay. And some of the hotels are more than that, so it can be much, much more. So coming here for a weekend trip is perfect if you're from Southeast Asia, but if you're coming from the States, then you're gonna have to stay like a week. It's just gonna be more worth it. So it's gonna be worth saving up a lot more money for that. So in the end, it's totally worth visiting in the next year. Just plan accordingly, as I said, and I think you'll enjoy it. But as you can see, the beach is here. It's beautiful as ever. It's here waiting for you. So hurry up and get to Guam, and I'll see you guys soon in the next video.